You, Cameron, have a fidget toy?
I do. Which one? I got this old 1,000,000 cups one that I had. So this was there. I also have a little City of West Sacramento Police Department from Chief of Police Robert Strange gave it to me.
Is that a stress ball in the shape
It's
of a
a
police car?
Yep. And then I have a little pineapple from Hornet Hospitality. So I got a lot of toys.
Man, you got a little toy store over your desk.
I have a kettlebell, just in case I need a workout.
A tiny little kettlebell. Yeah, it looks like it's pretty heavy. I have more than this, but on my desk I have but two. I have the Specs, which I think was one of our frivolous thoughts, probably well over a year ago, and then I also have these like little spinning circles here. You can hear them click.
Ooh.
But it's magnets, and so it's 3 circles. Those of you on the podcast side, not watching this on YouTube, we've got it's 3 circles that you put them around your fingers, and the outside is magnets, and so you just spin them around. So
I also do have my friendly turd polish.
You have a can of turd polish, as you need in your job at the Carlson Center. Well, welcome everyone to another episode of Zero to Traction, a podcast about how first-time founders create companies that scale. And speaking of scale, we're going to talk scale today, but we're going to talk about how you actually go through the process of getting to a point where you can scale. More specifically, we're going to talk about channel strategy for an episode that we are calling All Roads Lead to Distribution. Cam and JDM back at you today. Good morning, Cameron.
Good morning, JDM.
Awesome. And let's do this. Let's rock and roll. So what we I think the core of the message here, right, is when it comes to distribution. So distribution is all that matters in the end of the day. And if you're not figuring out distribution, you're really just wasting your time. And so this is our opportunity to talk to all of you out there who are focusing on building a product before your concept has been in front of people. So Cass put it as, if a product launches in the forest and no one hears it, does it even have a landing page? Mm-hmm. Which I actually think is pretty apropos here, right? Who cares if you launched a product if you have no way of getting it in front of people? And there are 2 big challenges with that. So one challenge is, how do you know you're building the right product, right? Because if you haven't found a way to get in front of people, then you really don't have the validation that you think you do. And then second, what does it matter to have a product if you can't get in front of people? The big risky assumption is that you can actually get this in front of somebody cheaply and efficiently. And if you can't, then you need to pivot audiences. And if you pivot audiences, you're going to have to pivot products. So all roads at the end of the day, no matter which way you go about it, are going to lead to distribution. So you can't do if you build it, you will come. So gotta find something else. Cameron, do you want to lay the groundwork before we dive into some examples?
Sure. Just real quick, I think I love the title all roads leads to distribution. And I think one of the key things that you often hear from founders is build it and they will come. And it's those roads aren't necessarily coming to you. You got to build those roads to distribution of your value proposition, your product to the customer. And so being really intentional to understand where are they actually looking to solve this problem, and then how do you then position your product or service in front of them to be able to ultimately create that value. And so particularly as we're thinking of building this scalable venture and one that has this repeatability, which allows us to scale, we need to be able to efficiently and effectively get in front of customers on a regular basis. And that's all about our distribution channels, those being, how we're actually getting our value proposition or what we've created in front of them, not only to understand what we're building, and then also when we do finally get into that sales, do we get that engine of growth and able to actually be able to dive into that. And so when we don't intentionally build around some of our go-to-market strategy in these channels, which are all tied to who your customer is, right? We can't just have a blanket, we're going to reach them by doing marketing, right? We need to have a really intentional way to get in front of our early adopters and customers. And that's where you hear often JD and I talk about this wedge into the market, which is a clear target of who this early adopter is and the channel and means of you communicating your offering to them to ultimately start to get that conversion. And so we want to really build that road to distribution, or else we likely are going to be building that road to destruction of our startup.
Ooh, spitting fire already. Yeah, I think a couple of things that come to mind for me. So one is that launching is not a strategy, right? And so like, and in fact, I think startups like just universally should never ever do a launch. Launching implies like you get this like one big at bat and you can just kind of take this swing and you're going to get all these customers. And first of all, it usually doesn't work. Second of all, it's a one-off, right? So it's not at all repeatable. And so it doesn't really get you anywhere except for like it gets you a shiny merit badge, like we did this launch and we got a few users, and that's not really going to do anything. That's not to say that you shouldn't quote unquote launch to people. Of course you should go live, but it's going to be in an experiment. Are you launching to your wait list? Don't think about it as a launch. Think about it as running an experiment to see if you can get conversions off the wait list, right? And then is that a repeatable pattern where you can actually get people onto a mailing list that you can then convert that way, right? Are you launching on social media? No, we're running a campaign on social media to see if we can get conversions because we want to test if that's a repeatable channel. Trying to position it as a launch positions as a one-time thing that is probably not going to work anyway. So I think that's one thing I'd just like to take off the table is you're never going to do a launch. Launching is not distribution. Launching is not go to market.
Love it. One last thing, and then maybe we hop into the game, was I think when we move away from this like launch mindset and really focus on this experimentation process, it kind of removes this, I would imagine, large kind of fear of, hey, if the launch isn't successful, then like the startup's a failure, right? Versus it being something that's run on an experiment. And it's okay if you're right or wrong because you took in a right-sized bet based on the evidence that you have versus doing this large bet of a huge launch that might not actually meet the needs because we don't have the evidence sufficient for that kind of investment of time and energy. And so right-sizing that bet based on, ultimately how we're rolling out and getting feedback from our customers.
All right, awesome. So let's dive in. We'll do a few examples as we usually do. And so these are going to be a slightly different than our usual. And that's because in our little game of Channel or Cope, we're going to get a little sitch. And this sitch is going to be a startup and their plans for their distribution. And then Cameron and I are basically going to assess, like, does this count as a distribution strategy? Or is it a real channel strategy, or is it just coping? Give them a score from 0 to 10, 0 being pure cope, pure copium, pure hopium, no strategy at all, and a 10 being a really solid strategy behind this distribution. So our first one here, a B2B SaaS founder building a tool to help remote teams schedule cross time zone meetings. So it's like Calendly meets a world clock. All right, so this is their description of their distribution strategy. We're starting a podcast about remote work culture. Once we build a following, we'll introduce the tool as a natural next step.
Yeah, I think you're building a following for kind of the wrong thing, right? They might be coming to learn more about work culture, but not solving the need of being able to work remotely across times. And so, I think there's often times where you try to build this kind of thought leadership, and podcast can certainly be a channel to get that. But is that actually where they're looking for this specific pain point related to time zones? If it's set as kind of this remote work culture that's solving a different problem versus remote culture that's tied to cross time zones, because you might not have an international audience. And so then you're not really getting that kind of, connection there. So for me, it's not like the strongest of, channels, and particularly just in creating our own kind of podcast here. It's a lot of work to create episodes. And so is there a better way to get this offering out there? And I think there definitely is. So I'd be curious of your thoughts, Jay Doom.
Well, only dumbasses start podcasts. So
Exactly.
yeah, don't recommend it. Two things. So one is a podcast is a completely different model than a SaaS company. Like so you're actually having two businesses. You're starting two businesses here. You're starting a podcast and you're starting a SaaS company. I don't know why you would do that. Either one of them can fail, so you've really just doubled your risk. So that to me is just stupid. The second thing is that is the theory here really that all of your B2B SaaS customers are going to come from the podcast? So like your SaaS can never grow larger than your podcast? Or are we, or, and if no, if the answer is yes, this is not a scalable business. If your answer is no, then all we're doing is a really temporary strategy. So we're going like this really big uphill climb. Like we're going up the podcast like cinder cone to try to get a temporary channel. And I don't know why we would do that. So this just doesn't make sense to me from any perspective. And I also hear like there's like, we want to, before we even introduce the tool, we're going to build an audience, even assuming that you got the right audience, which I agree with you, Cameron, there's no way in hell you do. Then like all we've done is delay finding out whether they even want a tool. So like this, I give this a 0 out of 10. This is horse shit.
I concur.
Okay.
Yeah, this was a tough one for sure. Seems more like a feature, not a startup.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna do another one. So this one here is a productivity startup for neurodivergent creatives. And so this is that's a lot there, but the app helps users track tasks using color-coded energy modes. All right. We're planning to launch again on Product Hunt next month, but this time we'll have better screenshots and more upvotes lined up. This is their 4th Product Hunt launch. The first 3 got a few hundred upvotes and almost no retention.
Yeah, so I think
please don't make me talk about Product Hunt again.
Yeah, I mean we've kind of at the top we talked about how launches aren't a key strategy, and I think the like big thing that stands out to me is one, they're trying the same strategy again and again with this kind of recognition, or I guess lack of recognition, that they're getting seemingly users to come on, but the retention is low, and so that's a signal that these aren't the right people. And so why are we going back to the same channel that's not yielding the right people, thinking that they're now going to be there? And so I think if we were really formal in our experimentation process and realizing, okay, the first 1 or 2 or 3 times we've launched this on Product Hunt, it's not actually a matter of the screenshots, because the challenge is not getting the users as much as it is retaining them. And that means they're not getting the value from it, or they're not the right people. And so I think that we're, again, doing something that maybe feels good because we get a like influx of people coming in, and but then they're not using it, which is obviously a big red flag. And so is there another area where we believe these people to be looking for such a solution? So
yeah, I think we've talked about this before in the podcast, but to me, Product Hunt is like the ultimate like launch mistake. I don't even think Product Hunt should exist, frankly. Like, I would never, I think, or almost never, recommend like a startup do anything on Product Hunt. It's just a waste of time. You're going with serial early adopters who are going to abandon you anyway, and you're doing it for ego. That's really the whole point of Product Hunt. And that's in addition to everything that you said, right? About clearly this isn't working, and we're going to say that we're going to fix it this time with better screenshots. Like that's what our hypothesis that our first 3 Product Hunt campaigns failed. Like we didn't get retention because the screenshots were bad.
Well, it's because of the real screenshots of them actually using it. They didn't enjoy.
Yeah. Oh, totally. All right. I'm giving that one 0 out of 10 as well. What about you?
Jeez, yeah. Yeah. No bueno.
No bueno. All right, Cass. give us one that's a little bit more in the gray area. All right. The one that's a little, I don't want to have this whole thing as 0 out of 10s. Okay, this is a SaaS tool that helps small creative agencies streamline feedback from their customers. Think like Google Docs comments, but across Figma video and PDFs. Okay, I've definitely seen some tools like this before, some popular ones for video. We're targeting design influencers on Twitter with free lifetime access in exchange for shoutouts. We're hoping their followers will trust their tools. So far, 2 influencers have posted. We got a bump in site traffic, 46 signups, 9 retained users, but no paid conversions. Yeah, so this one's definitely more in the gray area. This is not a 0 out of 10 here, right? So like we're saying, okay, we're going to do an influencer campaign, and we're going to pay them with a lifetime access to the product. That's fine. And I wouldn't, shout outs, I think, is a little bit less structured than I would like to see. I'd like to see this as an actual influencer campaign. I think that would make more sense. But the idea that you can get an influencer in a space to get their, followers to try a tool is tried and true. It works. But then what we're using is an influencer as a channel. And so we want to make sure that we're targeting the influencers that actually have the people that we want to target. And so we don't want to go influencer to customer. We want to go customer to influencer, right? We want to go bottom up and say, who are all these people listening to? Who are their influences? And then go to those influencers and try to do it that way. And you might have more success with something like this with micro influencers as opposed to larger influencers, particularly if your compensation is access to a tool, as opposed to money. They're used to like brand deals giving them some good money. But let's look at the deets, right? So 2 influencers have posted. You got a bump in site traffic, 46 signups, 9 retained users, no paid conversions yet. So like I think there's something interesting here, right? So like you got 2 influencers, so it's a pretty small sample size. I don't know out of how many, so I'm just going to put an asterisk on that. But two you got to post it. It did lead to a bump in traffic, resulting in 46 signups, and I think that's actually pretty interesting. 9 users that you retained, but none of them paid. That's a big drop off there. And so, from 46 to 9 and from 9 to 0 is really big. I don't know if 9 to 0 is a big deal. That depends on your understanding of the unit economics, but 46 to 9 is a pretty big deal to me. And so why is there such a big drop off? Was this the right audience? Was it the right promise? How did the influencer do this? I think this is a place where we want to dive into the data to find out why this didn't work. But I think that there is something interesting here. You didn't get traction. You didn't get the traction you wanted, but you did run, but if you structure this as an experiment, which this leads me to believe they did, but if you structure this as an experiment, I think you might get some interesting data back.
Yeah, I think it just gives you more grounds to make decisions on how this was ineffective or it was effective, like what you need to shift in there. And so part of the things that I'm seeing as I see the drop off of 9 retained users to no paid conversions yet, were they asked to pay, or was it like a freemium, or what was kind of the overall sign up there, is one component of that overall potential maybe drop off. So was there just not an ask? And then, but yes, I agree. There's a big drop off from the 46 that signed up to then 9 retained users. And so I think also it's tied to maybe thinking through these influencers, what is kind of their call to action? Is it just purely them saying we're using this tool and you should check it out? Or what is that in terms of their overall ask? And then that has to obviously be right sized for how you're compensating them, whether that's, free uses of the tool or whatever that might be, or you're paying them on the back end. If they're, if they're more incentivized by the revenue, then, they're more likely to maybe push a paid version if that's actually part of how your tool overall works. But I think overall having an experimentation process around it will allow us to see what of those pieces we need to ultimately add and amend going forward. But I think there's some solid foundation of running this as a distribution strategy. Awesome.
All right, let's do one more, and then we'll do our frivolous thoughts. So here's the last one that we'll do today, 4th and final: a compliance automation tool for healthcare SMBs. Think HIPAA administration, but without spreadsheets and migraines. All right, healthcare compliance tool for small to medium businesses in the healthcare space. We're running LinkedIn DMs plus personalized cold emails targeting office managers at small clinics. Our response rate is approximately 6%. Demo to sign up is 40, turns low. We adjust messaging every week based on objections.
Seems pretty solid to me. They got, I think strong data points in what their like expected kind of values are. I think the one kind of flag for me was we adjust messaging every week based on objections. And so are they really at this point of, I think of our episode, sales objections and overcoming sales objections. And is that actually that like, are we taking that as feedback to like maybe amend the offering, or are we kind of pushing back related to that and seeing it more as a sales process versus kind of that validation discovery phase of things? So that would just be kind of the one thing that really stands out. But the others, like, I think it's really specific. And yes, we're using LinkedIn DMs, but with personalized cold emails as well. And then, they have an expected kind of response rate. And, I think it's pretty on point.
Yeah, I think it's cool. So the first two we gave 0 out of 10. The third one I think we forgot to rank
like
there, but I'd give that
4.
one maybe a 5 out of 10.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
I think this one's like an 8. I actually think this one's pretty good. There's a clear hypothesis, right, that we can find and reach out to these people on LinkedIn and cold email that will lead to a demo, and then a demo will lead to a sale. We've got some data, we're iterating. So all that's awesome. It's great. The response rate is good, like 6%. It's not bad. 40% conversion rate when you do a demo, not bad. Low churn. That's lacks specificity, but we'll just say, okay, awesome. Yeah, I have the same reaction about sales objections. I do like altering the messaging every week, but then the question is, what are we optimizing for? And so one of the things I do want to call out here is potential survivor bias. So if you're optimizing for objections, you're optimizing to convert the people who did got on the demo, right? And because those are the only ones you're hearing objections from. Right. So those who didn't respond, you're not hearing any objections from them at all. And so it could be that those people are objecting for the same reasons and therefore never responded. But I think that's a big assumption. And so then I just want to call out that what we're assuming here is that our goal is to up that 40% demo to sign up rate. But 40% is also pretty good. I mean, is there room for improvement? I'm sure there is, but is there a way to get, like, if we're really optimizing for the bottom of the funnel as opposed to the top of the funnel, then I have some additional questions, and maybe then it is about objections. But if we're actually just trying to get this to run a little bit more solid, then we might want to take a look at that 6% response rate and actually take a look at, can we improve that? Is it the right channel? What's our actual customer acquisition cost for this? How much is that costing us? And actually dive into, are we actually massaging the right part of this funnel? And maybe we are, right? But based on what I read here, pretty good. Couple of yellow flags. So, but 8 out of 10. That's my score.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm right there with you. I think we talk a lot about the pirate metrics. And I think one of the things for me that's really valuable in thinking through that lens is, again, we talk about those being different levers to pull. And so if we're optimizing for the like objections portion, which is much later in that process. So are we going to get that much greater from 40 to 50% in terms of our demo to like landing them as a sign up versus increasing that 6% to 10%? Now we have a higher, throughput of overall people. And so is that the better lever to be pulling based on, fine tuning and tweaking our messaging from there? So that's kind of, I think, how I'd put it in a box to conclude.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, we are out of time. A little short episode this week, but hopefully jam-packed, right?
Yeah, always.
Good stuff. But it would not be Zero to Traction without some frivolous thoughts to share with you today. I'll kick things off.
Cool.
So this is a little plug, actually, nothing I'm involved in, but I used to all the time when I was younger. I used to listen to All Songs Considered on NPR. It's one of their shows. It's a music show, and I hadn't listened in a long time. It's been in my podcast player, but I probably haven't listened to an episode in years. I queued one up on this last Friday. They did their drop of like their album drop episodes. It was all on new albums that basically came out last week, and it was great. It's like some new discovery of some artists that you might not get a lot of exposure to here in the United States, because some of them were European, and then also some people from the late 2000s, or sorry, late 90s, early 2000s that maybe long since forgotten but have released new albums, and then with a lot of collaborations with artists from today and from yesterday and all that. So anyway, it was a really interesting mix of albums, like perfect summer jam, all that is. But all this is to say, if you're a music person like me, if you love music, All Songs Considered is awesome. There's my really like geeky way to talk about music, is to say let's listen to an NPR podcast about music. But it is awesome.
Nice. I love it. We'll have to check that out. I'm one of the top listeners on Spotify. And one of their reports was I, at 1 month, was in the top 1% of hours or minutes listened on Spotify. So,
all right.
So super user. Right. I guess my frivolous thought was, I've been continuing my path towards the next marathon, but I went for a short run, and one of my goals was to run a sub 6-minute mile, which I accomplished yesterday. So ran a mile in 5 minutes and 54 seconds. So pretty cool. And so, yeah, I just am super excited about being able to have accomplished that. And it was one of those where I was like, my first lap, really solid. Second, started to slow down, and then you're like, oh man, I'm not going to make it. And then I was like, no, you can make it. Why? You've already ran this hard for this period of time, so you might as well finish it. So yeah, pretty pumped on that.
Awesome. Well done. Cool. That is a milestone to cross. So sure. Very, very cool. Well, that is all the time that we have here. Thank you so much for listening to us. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you like and subscribe. And we will be back in your podcatchers next week with another episode. If you've got some things that you want to hear more about, hit us up. Let us know. We want to know what you guys want to hear about, and we'll figure out some content and design a game around that and play it live on the air.
There we go. We'll even give you a shout out.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we'll do credit where credit's due. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, we look forward to being in your ear, and thanks for having us in the ear today. So we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.